Today, we are going to tackle a question that feels so fundamental, it's kind of wild to think we ever got it wrong. What is the true shape of our world? This is a story that took thousands of years to piece together, and it all starts with what we thought we saw with our own two eyes. For most of human history, the answer seemed completely obvious. The ground looks flat, right? It feels flat. But then a few really keen observers started noticing clues. Little things that just didn't add up. So how in the world did we go from millennia of common sense to realizing we live on a giant sphere? So back in the ancient world, this wasn't really a theory. It was just reality. The ground beneath your feet stretched out in a huge flat plain. The sky above looked like a giant dome. Every single sunrise and sunset seemed to confirm this simple, intuitive idea. And you know what? Their model was totally logical for what they could see. You watch the sun set in the west. Okay, so where does it go? Well, the simplest explanation was that it journeyed underneath the flat world all night, getting ready to pop back up in the east the next morning. It was a neat, tidy explanation for the daily cycle. Okay, let's dive into this, because everything started to change in ancient Greece. This is where philosophers and sailors began noticing these little details, things that just didn't quite fit the flat Earth model. They were basically gathering clues, like cosmic detectives. So the first major clue wasn't found in some dusty library or an observatory. Nope, it was right there at the docks. Anyone who spent enough time by the sea could see this strange phenomenon for themselves. Think about it for a second. If the Earth were flat, a ship sailing away would just get smaller and smaller until it was a tiny speck you couldn't see anymore. But that is not what happens. The hull, the bottom of the ship, vanishes first, like it's sinking. Then the sails go, and finally, the very top of the mast is the last thing you see. This can only happen if that ship is sailing over a curved surface. But the clues weren't just on the sea. The next one came from looking up at the night sky. As people traveled, they started to realize that the map of the stars above them, well, it wasn't fixed. See, on a flat plane, everyone, no matter where they are, should see the exact same sky. But that's not what travelers found. As they journeyed north, the North Star climbed higher and higher. And if they traveled south, familiar constellations would actually sink below the horizon as brand new ones appeared. This shifting perspective is only possible if you're moving across the curve of a sphere. But honestly, the most elegant proof, the real knockout punch, came from our closest celestial neighbor, the moon. For the ancient Greeks, watching it led to a true aha moment about the shape of our own planet. During a lunar eclipse, our Earth casts its shadow onto the face of the moon. And what the Greeks noticed was that this shadow was always, without fail, a perfect curved circle. Now, a flat disk could cast a circle, sure, but only if the eclipse happened at the absolute perfect angle. At any other angle, it would cast an oval or just a line. The only object that casts a perfectly circular shadow every single time, no matter how it's turned, is a sphere. Case closed. It was airtight logic. So knowing the Earth was a sphere was one thing. But the next obvious question was, just how big is it? And this is where a brilliant Greek librarian named Eratosthenes comes into the story. And his only tools were basically a stick, his brain, and 2 cities in Egypt. Okay. So Eratosthenes had heard about a well in a city called Syene. On the summer solstice, at high noon, the sun shone straight down to the bottom of it. No shadows. That means it was directly overhead. But in his own city of Alexandria, hundreds of miles north, he noticed that at the very same time, a stick in the ground cast a very clear shadow. He measured the angle of that shadow and found it was about 7.2 degrees. And here's the brilliant part. Using basic geometry, he realized that angle was the exact same as the angle separating the 2 cities from the Earth's center. Since 7.2 degrees is 1/50th of a full 360-degree circle, he figured the distance between the cities must be 1/50th of the Earth's total circumference. So he just multiplied the distance between the cities by 50, and he came up with a number that, when you convert it to modern units, is just astonishingly close to the actual circumference of the Earth. The man measured the entire planet more than 2,000 years ago with almost perfect accuracy. It's just incredible. For over 1,000 years, this knowledge was mostly just theoretical, something scholars debated. But then came the age of exploration, when some very brave mariners decided to put this theory to the ultimate test. They were literally betting their lives and their ships on the fact that the world was round.
This timeline really shows you that incredible leap from ancient math to global exploration, and it helps clear up a really common myth. Columbus did not set out to prove the Earth was round. Most educated people already knew that. He was simply gambling on it to find a new, faster route to the east. But it was Magellan's crew who gave us the final, practical proof by becoming the first people to sail all the way around it.
This quote right here, it really captures the spirit of the age. Columbus wasn't just looking for a trade route. In his mind, he was on this grand, prophetic journey to a new heaven and new earth, an idea made possible by the simple fact that you could sail west to eventually get to the east. So, the arguments were pretty much settled, the globe had been sailed around, but humanity still had one last mind-blowing perspective to gain. We had to actually leave our world to truly see it for what it is. And then, in the 20th century, we went to space. For the very first time, human eyes and cameras captured images of our planet from afar. Those photographs of our beautiful, fragile, and yes, undeniably spherical world just hanging there in the blackness of space, well, they ended any lingering debate forever. So, what's the real takeaway from this whole epic journey? It's a story that's about way more than just geography. It's really about the triumph of curiosity and reason over superstition and just plain old assumption. This idea just captures the spirit of this journey perfectly. Discovering our planet's shape wasn't just about collecting facts. It was about the power of a scientific mindset. It's a way of observing, questioning, and then testing that transforms a world of myth into a universe of knowable wonders. And here's why this all matters so much today. The same method, observe, question, test, that revealed the shape of our world, that is the very engine that drives our modern lives. Understanding the principles of nature is what allows us to harness them, and that leads to every single advance we have in medicine, technology, and all of human progress. It all started with just a simple observation of a ship on the horizon and a shadow in a well, and it led us all the way to the moon. It really makes you wonder, with the tools and the knowledge we have at our fingertips today, what seemingly impossible questions are we going to answer next?